Welcome, everybody, to the Competition Archery Media Podcast, where we explore all things pertaining to competition archery. I'm your host, PJ Riley, and the CAM Podcast is brought to you by O'Neill's Classic Archery. And with us today, special guest off her first ever win in the Women's Known Pro class at the ASA, Katelyn Bordwell. Katie, thanks for being here.
Hi, thank you for having me.
So I know from as soon as you won that tournament, you were kind of speechless. Have you had time to process that yet? That you finally, I saw your post where you said, finally, or it's about time or something. I forget what your wording was, but how has that sunk in, that pro class win there at the ASA?
Honestly, like, the shoot off goes so fast, and I don't think people realize it unless you're in it. Like, I still feel like it didn't happen. Like, it's just a complete blur. Like, did that really happen? So it still hasn't sunk in.
So I have a million questions about that, but let's talk a little bit about that weekend, because there were some difficult ranges out there that folks struggled with. And I'm not saying that you didn't struggle, but you obviously were successful. You were able to handle it. What was working for you that weekend?
So one thing I did change for that weekend that I haven't done before, I've always shot skinny arrows. So that was the first time I ever shot 23s on the range, which I did think helped catch a lot of lines. I'm used to going for the upper lot, which generally there's not going to be other arrows in there because a lot of those girls do go for the lower. So I'm a little used to having a blank target, not as black as they were there, but still I'm used to not having many arrows to aim off of. So I think that was a little bit of a help of kind of feeling used to aiming first before other people.
So you kept shooting at uppers, or you went to the lowers?
I kept shooting at uppers because you couldn't see anything anyways, and that's what I'm used to doing, and I know the spots better where to aim at uppers.
Oh, I got you. Yeah, because you couldn't see anything. You have to totally reference it. Because you led day one, you led day two, and then you go into the finals and kill it there. So, obviously, London is the one that everybody talks about. They either love it or they hate it. I'm guessing you now love it.
Sure.
So in the finals, and I was trying to remember, so you had a podium when you shot the Women's Pro, which was the judging class, I believe in Metropolis one year.
Yeah, so I've had two podiums, third place in Women's Open, and then one in the Known Pro.
Okay, gotcha. So this is your second in Women's Known Pro, second podium, but first win. Yeah. What's that like? Because you've been shooting for a while. For how many years have you been shooting ASA? It's several.
I don't even know.
Because I know you famously shot before there was a Women's Known Pro. You went and shot Known Pro. That's men or women. Technically, it's all men now, but you shot in that one. And that was several years ago. I'll ask you, did it feel like this was going to happen? Did you think this was going to happen? Or were you like, man, this is never going to happen?
I thought it would eventually happen. I didn't know when, and I didn't know where, or whatever. I thought it would eventually happen. That's why, like I said, when I posted, it finally did. I'm glad it finally did, and I'm hoping it's that monkey off the back, and you'll see me up there again, but we'll see.
Yeah. And as the pro, I'm guessing that's what you want to achieve, is to be on the top of the podium. Certainly getting on the podium is good. What has the reception been like, from the folks at Hoyt? Steve Anderson, I saw him post some stuff. He was pretty excited. What have the folks at Hoyt said to you reaching out? Because you got two. You won this, and Aaron McLattery won Women's Pro.
Yeah, they're very excited. I got a text immediately right after from Tom and Steve and stuff like that. So they're very excited.
Gotcha. And you've been shooting Hoyt for many years. How many years have you been shooting?
I think it's around 6 now, something like that.
Let's talk about the Shootdown a little bit. So you get into the finals. I'm guessing that adds another level of, if you're not already nervous shooting in that class, boom, that ratchets it up a bit. How are you able to deal with that? How do you feel going into the finals?
So it definitely was a very, very different feeling than any of the other shoot-offs I made, because all the other ones I'm at like the bottom of the pack, and I felt like, either I didn't have anything to lose, so I, wasn't as nervous. Going in the lead and knowing that I have a lot to lose, I was extremely nervous. I told you we talked about watching my heart rate before, and I watched my heart rate after the shoot off, and it was pretty high through the entire time, but there was two really big spikes of it. Right. The first big spike was actually before we walked out there, just like the anticipation building up of like, oh my gosh, I'm so nervous about this. And then the second one was actually right after I shot my last arrow. It like spiked up to like 153 because I was just so like, what happened? Yeah. Yep.
So now Glen was your umbrella holder out there. What's it like having your brother out there? I imagine he was able to calm you, or did he make it worse?
Yeah, no, I actually tell everybody Glen's the best umbrella holder ever. He knows me very well, my moods and how to deal with my moods. So he knows what to say. This one, he wasn't able to calm me down completely, but he was able to make me feel a little better.
Is he giving you advice during the round there, or telling you, what scores are what, or what you need to shoot, or what kind of things is he talking to you about?
The main thing he's telling me is this is where the scores are. This is what it's at. There's so much going on that, I don't even look up at the scoreboard, or I don't hear Mike talking back there. So he's pretty much like, so-and-so shot this, they're at this, they shot this, you're here. Like, so he pretty much the entire time is running me down. This is placement.
Yeah. Darren Christianberry during the Shootdown, he always mentions it flies by so fast. You talk about that, what that's like. It's 5 targets, but talk about what it's like and what you have to process. And you have to make decisions. Talk about that a little bit, what that's like.
Yeah, it's extremely fast. I feel like I never have enough time for every target. The biggest thing when I'm up there, like as they're down there doing scores, I'm already range finding the next target and setting my sight, because I'm really big on making sure I want my sight set. I don't want a mistake on something stupid like that, setting it wrong.
Right.
So majority of the time up there, I'm like double checking my sight a ton. And then, like I said, Glen will tell me standings and I'll be like, okay, this is what I'm aiming for. But yeah, I feel like it goes too quick. You don't have enough time to process anything.
Yeah. Was there any point in there where you had to change something because of a shot someone took? I don't think nobody ever caught you, correct? You stayed ahead.
No, yeah. Yeah, I was pretty fortunate because I was so nervous. I could pretty much stay safe and aim 10s. My very first target was a 12, so that helped me out. Right. Jordan, I think, did come up and she got within 2 points from me, but it wasn't enough to make me feel like I needed to start being aggressive and go for 12s or anything crazy.
Right. So in there, because now I'm remembering, like, I think Hallie shot a 5. She was coming up. She shot a 5. Paige shot an 8. Jordan Dearman had a 5 at the end there. Are you paying attention to all that, or are you strictly thinking about what you're doing and what you need to do?
So for the most part, I'm just thinking about what I'm doing and what I need to do. The only time I worry about their scores is when they're scoring on what the current standings are. I think especially because I am so nervous and it's taking a while for me to get my shot off, I'm not going to wait and see what everybody else shot just because I want to worry about my own shot and not have that going on in my head. Right.
Was there any one of those targets that you didn't feel comfortable with, or that you were like worried about?
All of them.
All of them.
All of them, yeah. I think, yeah. I think particularly towards the end, I was like getting even more shakier because I'm like, wow, it's becoming more real. And I told Glen that, like, I'm shaking a lot, and he's just like, do a strong shot, like you are fine, like don't worry about 12s, just keep it in the 10.
So I'm trying to remember, so you guys shot, so you had the Coyote, I believe, was the longest. I think it was 49 yards. Target. Yeah. And that's the one you 12'd.
Yeah. Yep.
So does that calm you down, give you confidence? So you hit that as your first target. What does that do for you, your state?
It did calm me down a little bit. Like, okay, we're not messing up right at the beginning. We're holding on to that lead. We gained a few points. And I think it made me comfortable to start playing safer and not worry about, okay, I need to get more of them to keep that lead up there. So yeah, it did help me a lot.
I mean, that was the hardest. It's a small target. It was the farthest target. Yeah, I would imagine that would feel good to hit that one. Then you ended on the Panther, which I don't know if you watched, but through all the shoot downs, that one was giving people problems I'm guessing because of what you could and couldn't see.
Yeah. So that one, actually, when we got up to it, I had the game plan of still going. I was kind of aiming like just below the upper 12, not aiming hard at it. Maybe if I bumped up a little bit, I would get it. And before that target, Jordan, I knew was only 2 points for me. So I know if she shot a 12, and she was on the furthest target as well, the coyote at the time. So I knew if she shot a 12 and I shot a 10, we'd at least be tied going into the 6th arrow, and I would get a chance to be the last person to shoot because I had more bonus rings to make the game plan if I needed to be aggressive.
Right.
So even on the Panther, I was like, I'm not going to go for the 12. I'm going to just shoot safe and go into the slacks target, which she ended up on the coyote. I think she shot an 8, which gave me more points in front of her. So
as you talked about out on the courses, and incidentally, one of the courses that you shot was a new one this year, so nobody had ever seen it before, and it was rough. It was hilly. There was more terrain than we typically see it in ASA. You know, usually most of them, while we're going to Metropolis, if you see a 1 foot incline, I'll be surprised. But this one had a lot of hill action in it. And I had the stats on it. I mean, take Jimmy Lutz out of it, who shot 30 something up on the second day. Yeah. The scores from the folks who shot that range were not that great. You had one of the best. I'm trying to remember, I think you were better than the best senior known pro. And then except for Jimmy Lutz, obviously you had the best women's known pro score. Yeah. So you shot pretty well there. What's your scope set up? Like, what were you able to see? You mentioned you're good at aiming when there's nothing there, but what were you able to see?
A silhouette of the target.
That's much. It.
I wasn't really able to see anything. I feel like I just have, I'm starting to get really down of knowing where to aim on the target, just having a good feeling of this is where my upper is.
Yeah.
Hopefully that's the case. But yeah, I couldn't really see anything at all. You would think you could see something and you pull back and you'd be like, all right, there's nothing there.
Nothing. So then going to the baseball field where it's totally different, now it is flat in the open, were you able to see rings there?
Yeah, I definitely could see the 10 rings for, I think, pretty much all of the targets. Plus, we had the seniors shoot before us, so you can see some of the holes that they punched in already. So I could see so much better in the shoot-off.
And what's power lens do you shoot?
A 6.
A 6. Okay. So that is pretty, you got a lot of magnification there. Yeah. How about your scope size? Are you shooting a big one, 40 or?
Yeah, it's a 42, I believe.
Okay. 42. Yeah. I noticed some folks that I normally see shooting 29s had 35s or 40s. They were going bigger there. I wished I had done that myself, but I didn't.
Yeah.
But okay, so then it comes down to the last arrow. I think I know you didn't need more than a 10. I can't remember. Did Mike say you needed a 5 or an 8 to win?
So I needed an 8 to win.
An 8 to win. Okay. So how does that feel when you hear that? Take me through that last shot, what that's like.
So going into it, I was like, I know I can do this. Like, this is, and it was only, I think, 31 yards away. And it was the Impala, which has a really nice aiming line on it. Like, it's very easy to see where to aim. So I felt like this is a very easy shot. I can do this. There's no complications to this. I still was extremely nervous and shaking a bunch. My pin's moving around the whole entire 10.
Yeah.
But yeah, I felt extremely like, unless something crazy happens, like, I have this. This should be a slam dunk.
From my angle, of course, I'm just seeing you on the screen there. It looked like you were comfortable. It didn't look like there were any issues there, but I'm guessing inside it probably didn't feel totally like that.
Yeah, heart rate was up.
So you've been around archery a long time. How did that moment compare to other pressure situations you've been in? Would you say that's the most you've ever felt, or have you felt more in other places?
That was definitely the most. That was the biggest one for me.
Is that right? Because I remember in Metropolis, to get on the podium, you hit a ridiculous 14 that nobody was hitting. Because I remember going nuts when you hit it. I was like, I can't believe she hit that. But I'm guessing go ahead.
Yeah, so that was unknown too.
Yeah.
Which I feel like for that one, like my nerves were nothing there because especially just even shooting unknown shoot-offs versus known shoot-offs. And the unknown, I'm so focused on my judging and figuring out how far the target is that I feel like I don't get enough time to get frustrated and nerved and worried about my shot. But now that I know how far the target is, all I'm worried about is I need to shoot good. I know how far it is. Like, this is supposed to be easier. Yeah. And also the same thing with that shoot off. I knew I had nothing to lose. So I was like, okay, well, I'll just go for it. Where this was, so much more excited, everything to lose.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Which Hoyt are you shooting? The Stratus? Which one?
The Stratus, the 36.
The 36. Okay. So when you're in those pressure situations, is there any tendency that you have, like creeping or pulling too hard or doing something weird?
Yeah, so I definitely, I need to shoot a lighter release in those higher situations. I feel like I'm actually not pulling as hard. It's taking longer for my release to finally go off because I'm just so tensed and nerved up that I'm not yanking into it, I guess.
Yeah. Are you shooting a hinge or a thumb button?
A thumb button.
You are shooting a thumb button. Okay. So is there any way that you can practice that? I mean, I'm guessing you just can't recreate that tension.
Yeah, because unfortunately, like the only time, that was one of the most nerve-wracking situations I've been in. So I didn't make this realization until after the fact. Like, okay, I need to set up a different release just for high-pressure situations because you can't practice it at home. You only get to experience it in the moment.
Gotcha. So that's one of your takeaways from that finals.
Yeah. Definitely.
Okay,
yeah.
Gotcha. I'm interested because I just, Cara Kelly says she has 3 set up for different situations. She shoots a hinge, but they're on different settings depending on how she's feeling. So that's interesting. Yeah. A lighter release for that. So, okay. The arrow hits, you hit a 10, I believe, on that last arrow.
Yeah.
So clearly you made that win. What's the first thought that enters your mind? Or is it just going crazy?
It was crazy. Like I said, there was a huge spike in my heart rate. It spiked up and then all of a sudden I just felt this instant relief. Like, okay, that's over finally. Like, thank goodness. But yeah, my mind was not slowing down. I just didn't know what to do.
Yeah. What's this? Do you notice the crowd there at all? The people around when you're in that situation?
Honestly, I don't. I'm so just focused in on what I'm doing and my nerves and my shooting that I honestly forget that they're even there.
Yeah. Who's the first person you call when you get your hands on a cell phone?
Well, they all called me first. Oh. My dad called me first. Yeah. I actually take my cell phone and I don't even know where it was. I gave it to somebody, like, hang on to this. And yeah.
Gotcha. Yep. Dad, you got to talk to Dad, obviously.
Yep.
So let's talk about practice. Like, how much time do you put in? You play a lot of the games indoor, Reading, you go to things like that. So how much time are you able to practice ASA in a week? What's a typical day?
So honestly, I shoot every day, and usually I'm just shooting 50 yards at the bags at the house. Once in a while, I'll go to a 3D course. We have our local ones on Sundays that I'll go to. We have targets of our own that are still sitting in the barn that haven't been put out yet. But yeah, my typical day is just shooting 50 yards at the bag.
Really? Okay. So you don't
Yeah.
spend much time shooting those ASA targets, the 3Ds?
Not as much as I should. Yeah.
Gotcha. But you still know
Yeah.
where to shoot. That's pretty good. That seems to be that bore. I don't know why. I have that one. I shoot it every day, and I miss that 12 all the time. I'm like, oh yeah, that hit right where I was aiming. I walk up, right. Come on.
Yeah.
Exactly where those
He's
rings
one of the
are.
harder ones.
So let's talk about archery then a little bit. How did you get started? How and when?
So my parents actually own an archery shop, Legends of Fall Outfitters in Tully, New York.
Yes.
So I was 3 years old when I started shooting. My mom was sick and my dad had to watch me for the day. So he handed me like a little recurve and old arrows and was like, all right, you play with this. And I got hooked right away and I would shoot almost every single day. They'd hang up balloons and stuff like that. And then we have the kids league growing up that I would shoot in and I would beat up on all the boys and that. I'm a very competitive person. I always have to one up somebody or everybody. And then also my brother's shooting as well, like that one, because I was the younger one, I had to be better than them. So it's just this whole, snowball effect of having to be better than somebody else. And
Yeah.
it just turned into competitiveness. Yeah.
How many Bordwell kids are there? I only know Glenn and you.
Yeah, so we have, there's three of us. We have an older brother, Dylan, as well, that he doesn't shoot as much as he used to, but he's really into the bow hunting.
Okay, gotcha. So you're the youngest, so
Yep.
and the only girl, so added pressure. Got to beat the boys.
Yes. Yeah, I was daddy's girl, tomboy, had to be better than the boys. Yeah.
So when did you start getting into like serious competitions? At what age?
So I think when I was around like 7 or 8, I started doing the local like indoor state shoot. And then when I was 12, my brothers were doing really good and my dad wanted to take them to indoor nationals. So he took me along just for the ride. And then I ended up winning indoor nationals in my class there. And that was like when I like really started like, wow, this is really fun. I like this. And from there, we just kept on going to more and more shoots.
Yeah. And that was when you were 12 or when they were 12?
When I was 12.
When you were 12. Okay. Wow. Indoor nationals. Nice. And then, so, USA archery stuff, NFA stuff, when did you start getting into that?
So I haven't really done any USA archery stuff, but I've done that NFA, the Indoor Nationals, Vegas, and then obviously Lancaster as well. I think probably around after I won Indoor Nationals at 12, we started going to that every single year. And then a few years later, we started going to Lancaster and then Vegas. And we continually just added on one shoot after another. And then we started getting into IBOs the first, and then we got into the ASAs, and it just kind of snowballed.
And you guys shoot Reading, correct? You and Glenn both.
I went to it my first year this year.
Oh, this was your first
and then Glenn
year.
shot it. Yeah, this was my first year. Glenn shot it previously, and then this is the first year he didn't go when I went.
And you went. So what do you think about that then, coming from IBO, ASA, now you're out there shooting orange dots on these 3Ds, which you can see.
Yeah. I absolutely loved it. There was a couple of targets where I went to pull up binos before I went to go shoot to like look at where I need to aim. And I'm like, wait, no, there's a orange dot out here. But I absolutely loved it. And I love shooting that far distance of, you shoot and there's a few seconds before you hear your arrow hit the target. Like that to me is just so exciting. I'll never miss that tournament again.
Oh, gotcha. I thought you had been doing that for a couple of years now. Maybe I was thinking of Glenn. Yeah, so ASAs, do you remember what your first year shooting it was and what you shot in?
So it was 2016, I remember. I went to shoot Augusta, which they don't have anymore.
Right.
And I shot, it was women's known 45 at the time. They didn't have a women's known 50 yet.
Right.
And I think that I placed like around 5th place in that. That was my first one. And I was like, wow, ASA is really cool. So then the following year, that's when I actually did all of them and then just do the one tournament. And now I don't miss any.
Yeah. And then they created the women's K50 first. And then
Yeah.
we got the women's known pro. So through that time, you have bounced back and forth between judging and not judging. You're from New York. I know IBO is probably the main thing you have around there, same as us, which is all judging. Which do you prefer?
I definitely prefer known. I like to worry about my shot and only about my shot. Not to say that judging can't be fun. It also can be a big headache. Even the days that I was good judging good, my head hurt. It's a lot to think about the entire day. But yeah, I really enjoy the known just because I feel like it's more about my shooting. Whereas unknown, there's a whole complex thing of judging and your shot. And, some days you don't know if you're judging bad or you're shooting bad, where I don't know, I just like to worry about my shot and that's it.
So you settled now in women's known pro.
Yeah, you're probably going to not see me move again unless something crazy happens.
Do you still shoot IBO?
I do not. No.
Okay. For outdoor stuff, is ASA, is that your only thing that you do?
Yes. Yep. Like I said, I went to Reading this year, but ASA is the only thing I do.
ASAs. Okay. So that women's known pro class, this is the second year for it. It has grown. I don't think it was quite double what it was last year, but there are significantly more. What did that mean for you personally when that class was created as a pro class? I was
very excited. I wanted it for a very, very long time. And I'm happy to see it grow. We guessed that the first year would be a little slow just because, everyone's testing the waters, seeing how it's going to be.
Sure.
So it was really exciting. I think fully this year we had probably around 25, 26. And it was really cool to see okay, more girls are joining. Like this class is starting to get bigger. So hopefully next year it even gets more, but we'll see. Yeah.
What do you tell to other women that you see about what that is like? I think, I've heard people say, oh, Paige is going to kill that class because she just wins everything. Now this year, she has some competition. She always did. And I mean, she'll be the first to say, hey, she doesn't want to win everything. She doesn't want to win them all she wants to win them for herself, but not win them in terms of making, it more accessible to more archers. But yeah, what would you say? What do you say to women who are thinking about that?
Well, with Paige doing as well as she did, it really pushed us. We're pushing each other to shoot better scores. And I'm shooting better scores than I ever did in women's K50 because I didn't need to shoot those high scores. And it's just pushing me to be a better shooter. So, I think it's always good to shoot with people that are better than you just because it pushes you to drive you to go harder than you were before. So, there's nothing, I can't say there's one wrong thing about joining and going up.
That's your competitive side coming out there, I take it.
Yeah.
You see them winning. All right, I got to step it up. And so what do you think for you it is that has allowed you to get better? Besides working on your shooting, how come your scores have gotten better?
Honestly, I generally do think part of it is my shot. I'm working harder at shooting more arrows, doing it, instead of once a day, I'm doing multiple times a day.
Okay.
And I talked about how I moved to 23s from skinny arrows. I used to not be able to shoot 23s because anytime I would have a bad shot, it would be way out because my skinny arrows are more forgiving. But now that I'm actually a better shot, I'm not having those bad shots anymore. I'm able to shoot a bigger arrow when I'm more consistent. So Gotcha. I really think it is just pushing myself to shoot more and practice more and work harder to be there.
Yeah, that's interesting. What is your draw length?
26.
26. And how much poundage are you shooting?
I'm doing just under 60.
Under 60. Yeah. So for you, 23 is going to be, it's going to be harder for you to find one that's weak enough without putting 300 grains up front and weigh it down so it doesn't go anywhere. So you attributed that to your improvements with the 23s, just to improving your shot overall.
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
So, all right. So Katie, outside competitive archery, talk about the other things you do. I know some of them, but I may not know all of them. What else do you do when you're not shooting your bow?
So I'm training dogs. Me and my dad does it full time actually. But we train bird dogs. It's through an organization called NAVDA. That's similar to AKC, but it's just for hunting dogs. So I'm not shooting. I'm training dogs, testing in that. I also do photography stuff, and I work in marketing. I do freelance work in marketing. So
Oh,
I
okay.
stay pretty busy doing a bunch of different things. Yeah.
So the dogs, that's what I want to talk about. Because for folks who saw the broadcast, I called you a world champion dog trainer. As I told you, I was thinking world class because I know you've won a bunch of competitions with them, maybe not world championships. But what's that like? Because you guys have a kennel where you breed and sell dogs.
Yeah, it's Mountain Spirit Kennel. We breed and sell short hairs, and then my dad also takes in client dogs that he trains for people. Yeah, it's a very different feel than archery because in archery it's all about me. I'm the one that's doing this, and I'm the only factor. Right. When I'm testing with the dog, if there's the dog and you don't know what dog is going to show up today, it might not be the dog that I trained a week ago. And they can, feel off of your nerves too. And there's judges there and stuff like that aren't there when you're normally training. So it's pretty stressful. Yeah. It's a lot of fun though.
It's all German short hairs. That's what you do.
Yeah. So I only train my own personal dogs. But my dad will also do, there's like poodle pointers and Vizslas and wire hairs. Like there's it's a versatile hunting dogs that will do upland and waterfowl work.
Yeah. So aside from the differences there, is there anything similar between competing in a dog trial, and competing in an archery tournament? I guess nerves.
Yeah, the nerves. Yeah, trying to keep those nerves down because, like I said, your dog feeds off of that. For the most part, the only other thing is just because of my competitiveness that I have is that, like always, I want to do good, so I have to work hard. But yeah, there's not too many correlations that I think I can put together.
What's your best accomplishment in dog training competition?
Yeah, so there's different levels in the NAVDA work. There is the NA, which is natural ability for dogs that are 16 months and older. There's utility, which is for dogs, finished dogs that there's a whole lot to it. But once they prize in that, then you are invited to the Invitational, which is the Super Bowl of the dog world. So with my dog Willow, we actually passed the utility and we were invited to the Invitational. So we went down to New Mexico and we trialed there, which we didn't prize there, unfortunately, but just being able to be invited there. I mean, there's few dogs in the country that even get to go. So that was pretty exciting.
No kidding. And when you do the dog trials, these are hunting dogs, are you using real birds?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah. They use a lot of chuckers out in the field and ducks out in the water and pheasants for tracking.
Gotcha. And so you do hunting at home as well with your dogs?
Yes. Yep. A lot of waterfowl at home. We do some grouse. We don't have a ton of grouse by us, but we actually have a camp up north that we'll go to. We also go to Maine. We've been to Nebraska hunting. And so yeah, we're really into it.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I know that you're a big hunter as well, besides waterfowl. Obviously, we could see the kudu behind you there.
Yeah.
Do you do much hunting around home? Bow hunting for deer and stuff?
Yeah. Yeah, we have a lot of whitetail around us. We actually have a really big chunk of lease that's 800 acres of continuous, which is really good for New York. And we're trying to do a lot of deer management there and grow big bucks and stuff like that. So yeah, we do a lot of whitetail. Like I said, there was the ducks. We do a lot of turkey, pretty much whatever's in season, coyotes.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Whatever's in season.
I see you discovered thermal night vision stuff for coyotes recently. Tell me about that.
Yeah, that was so cool. It's crazy to see all the stuff that come out at nighttime. My dad, we actually have a thermal company that they brought in the shop this year. And so we were trying it out. And my dad's like, you got to come with me one night. And I did. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. I could get addicted to this.
So you were hunting coyotes, which I know are a lot smarter, but the first time I tried it was for hogs. And what got me was just like how you could just walk right up there. You know, hogs are different, but you could just walk right up to them. Where in the day, you know, they're taking off. And I thought, man, this is fun. I could get used to this.
Yeah. It was very cool.
No idea you're there. It's in the dark. It's pretty cool. That could be a whole other subject conversation. So when you went to Africa for that kudu there, you all were bow hunting?
Yeah. There was one of the people that went with us. He did some gun hunting, and then we also did, which was neat. They drove us around at nighttime, and like animals were coming out, which you can gun hunt that if you wanted to. But I'm more into the bow hunting side.
Yeah. What all did you shoot on that safari? I remember seeing a bunch of pictures.
See, I had the kudu. I did zebra, gemsbuck, which was my big one that I wanted. I got a warthog. I wasn't planning on getting a warthog, but one came out that was bigger than the one Glen got, so I had to shoot that one. I got antelope. I think that was all of mine.
So let's talk about that for a second. What's that like? You and Glen go to a lot of these tournaments together. Is that competition still there, or are you still both cheerleaders for each other? How does that dynamic? I imagine it's probably a little of both.
Yeah, it's definitely both. He's doing unknown now, so I'm not as competitive with him because I'm like, no, you don't know the yardage, so I guess it's not fair. But I don't know if he's always worried about. I mean, if I'm beating him, then he's worried. But I don't know if he always has my score in his head, but I always do. Like, no, I have to do better than him. And part of it is because he's such a good shooter, so it's know, it drives me to be good. But
I imagine
I'm always out to win. Yeah,
I imagine that's cool too. No matter where you go, you know, you've always got your brother there. Or for him, he's always got his sister there. There's always some support there, regardless of where you are or what's happening.
Yeah, definitely. We're always rooting for each other. I want to do better, but I'm still going to root for him. Yeah.
I like that. So you get your first win in the pro class. I'm sure the next accomplishment is you want to win another one. But in your mind, is this a rung on the ladder that you've set for yourself, or what kind of expectations and goals do you have as far as archery, not just ASA, but for archery in general?
Well, I definitely, now that I've won one and I've experienced that feeling, I definitely want to have that again because it doesn't last long enough. And it's such like an adrenaline rush that now I'm like, okay, I have to win a lot more. I also want to get better on the indoor side. I really struggle with indoor just mentally going on. So that's, my next thing that I want to do this next year is make sure I have a really good indoor season.
Yeah. Shooter of the year, ASA, is that on your list there?
Absolutely. I would love to. Yeah.
And give me your perspective on that. For me, whenever I think of shooter of the year, I think of okay, it's 6 tournaments. I mean, you get to throw one away, but me, it just seems like that level of consistency for the people who win it is just ridiculous. You'd think somewhere along the line you'd have 2 bad shoots or something like that. How is that for you? Like, what are your thoughts about that, the consistency that you have to have?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely very difficult because I do have days that just aren't good days. That happens to everybody. So to win shooter of the year is extremely impressive because to the fact that you did that well for an entire year when there's a bunch of other really good shooters in the class, it's very impressive.
Yeah. Do you work with any coaches at all, or are you pretty much self-taught in what you do and what you work on?
Yeah. So growing up, my dad, he helps us out. But now it's pretty much self-taught. But we also have a good group of friends that, we go off of each other. If I'm having issues, I might ask one of them or equipment questions or stuff like that. So I'd like to say it's a self-taught, but it's not entirely. There's definitely a big support system.
I always see Louis Price in your groups when you're around there. Stefan Hansen, I'm just some of the best shooters in the world that you can say, hey, what can I do about this?
Yeah. It's very lucky.
So is there, now that you've shot all the venues for ASA, what is your favorite? Like, what's the one that you like to shoot the most?
So I really like Metropolis. That
do?
one you could see really well. Living in New York, I like Foley a lot too, but that's early in the year and we don't get to shoot outside prior to that.
Right.
So Metropolis is really nice. It's like, okay, I have some shoots under my belt. I've had some practice and now I'm getting to a tournament where you can see really easy. It's nice and flat. I love that shoot.
I noticed that you didn't mention one time in there that it's hot, really hot.
I didn't. Yeah. Yeah. I'm very bad about drinking water too. So I got to do better about that one.
Last year, the heat index the one day said it was 115 degrees. It was miserable. But what is it? Chance Bobov says, hey, we all got to shoot in it. So there's no,
right.
Everybody's doing the same thing. Oh, man.
Yeah, it's better than the rain that we had in Dunning too. I'd rather have that, the heat.
That's true. Good point. Yeah, so coming from Tully, New York, I don't know how far north in New York that is. Is that way up there? Middle?
We're pretty much like, if you put a dot in the center of the state, that's where I live.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just south of Syracuse. Yeah.
So still up there where you get some snow. So yeah, I would imagine Foley and maybe possibly even into Benning, you're probably still dealing with snow at home.
Yeah. Foley, we will not be able to shoot outside unless we want to shoot in big giant snow piles. Benning, this year we didn't have a terrible winter this year, but it still was really cold, not a lot of snow. So Benning, wasn't the greatest. It's usually the third shoot of the year where we finally been able to get a 50-yard mark before we go down there.
Gotcha. So do you feel that like is hampering you in getting into the season? Or do you have other ways to work on that?
I think it does a little bit. Luckily, our range at home, we could shoot out to 40 yards. So we do get some good distance for an indoor range. But yeah, that 40 to 50 where most of your targets are going to be set. We don't really get to work that much, but you got to deal with what you have.
That's right. Yeah. Did you see any at London that were under 40 yards? Any targets?
We had a
second
probably
day.
Yeah, I think the first day we might have had one or two that were under 40, but okay. If I remember right, but yeah, maybe like 3 or 4 for the weekend.
Do you have an ASA target that you hate more than others?
Not really, to be honest. I've gotten, if I was judging, yes. But in my head, I mean, the 10 ring is the same exact size on all of these targets. So whether it's the little wolverine or a big deer, I'm aiming at the same exact 10. So it doesn't bother me.
So you really see no difference if you're aiming at the wolverine or aiming at the boar or the large deer.
I like the wolverine because he's got that dark brown and up here is the light, and I know the upper is up here. So, I mean, I will say the black boar, he's kind of hard, just, if you were the first person up, but maybe that would be my least favorite. But I don't really have a target that I'll get up to and be like, oh, I don't like this one. Sometimes I see a shot the way they have it set up that I'm like, oh, I don't like this one, but I don't have a target that I really put down at the bottom of my list.
So, Katie, what can I do? I'm defeated as soon as I come up and see the wolverine. I'm already on the negative there because that thing is so small. I know the ring is the same, but for some reason, aiming at the large HD deer is so much easier. How do I get rid of that? Just shoot it more?
I don't know. Yeah, just shoot it more, maybe. Yeah. I mean, I just have this mindset in my head. Like I said, I only look at the 10 ring. I'm not looking at the target at all. I'm not looking at the 8 ring. I'm just looking at the 10 ring and where the 12 is in it. Because, I mean, especially if you go off the range and we only have a few 8s, hopefully a few 8s throughout the day. So it's like, how often do I even hit outside of that? So,
man, I had a decent round at the team shoot in London. I hit a couple 12s. I think I hit 4 or 5. I just had like 2 or 3 8s. The last target was the wolverine. Known distance. Ranged it. I missed the target. Missed it. Shot low. Have no idea why. Jimmy Lutz was standing back there and he said, shoot it again. I shot it again and I just barely caught the bottom of it. I don't know what it is about that target. it's got me. It lives rent free right here.
Yeah, definitely when I was judging, I had a hard time with that target. I was judged at 5 yards under too. So that judging wise, I would go up to him and be like, oh my gosh, I hope I hit foam here.
Yeah.
But yeah, now that I know the art, it's not as bad.
Have you had, as you're developing your archery, did you ever hit some kind of block or hurdle that you had to get over? Like, punching a thumb button or, doing something with your bow arm. What's a hurdle that you had to get past that was kind of a breakthrough for you?
So luckily I was very lucky. My dad introduced me into back tension pretty well. So I never had huge release issues. I think my biggest thing is my follow through and making sure that that's good. I had a hard time shooting actually bullet holes for a while because the way I torqued my bow when I was shooting. And then the one thing I'm going through now is I hit my arm quite a bit when I start getting into that little bit of torquiness that I'm finally progressing out of. But I feel like I haven't had anything hugely major. It's more in here and less of the shot. But yeah, I'm still getting over that in there, but
hey,
we're trying.
If you can find a fix for up here, you'll be a gazillionaire. Boy, you could sell that to everybody.
Yeah.
Now you said your bowstring hitting your arm. That's one thing that happens occasionally.
Yeah, it does. I've had to, wear sleeves or whatever. And a lot of times I'll just shoot through it and I'll be shooting good. So I don't try and fix it because in my head I'm like, oh, but then once it starts bleeding, it's like, okay, this isn't right. I got to fix this. This is not okay.
So you're torquing it in those situations, but the arrow's going where you want it to still. Right.
Yeah. But the problem is once it starts bleeding, I start flinching as it's hitting me. So it's going to be a mess if I keep doing it. So
yeah. So we talked about your bow. Let's talk about the rest of your setup. What stabilizers are you shooting?
I have shrewd bars on there.
Okay. Sight and scope.
So I have a true ball sight on there and then a shrewd scope.
Shrewd scope. Okay. And which release are you shooting?
I have the true ball. I think it's the blade. If I'm right.
The blade. Okay. Not the Rio one that switches back and forth. The goat. It's the blade.
No.
Okay.
No.
And arrows. Your Easton?
I have the Easton. The Super Drive 23s.
Super Drive 23. Okay. And how much point weight do you have up front?
120.
120. Okay. Do you know what speed you get?
So right now I'm getting, it's around 273 when I had to change my stuff around. I was getting around 280 when I was shooting my skinnies, but the big arrows definitely slowed down. And
did you find that affected you in any way like that? Okay, I gotta be on point a little more here because they're not going quite as fast.
Yeah, I definitely noticed at the beginning. It took me a long time to finally I've been such on the train of skinny arrows. They're better for me. They shoot better. I group better. So it definitely did take me a while to feel comfortable. Like, yes, these 23s are shooting just as good. I still see that if I have a bad shot, they don't do as well as my skinnies would. And then obviously if there's wind, they're going to get blown more. But like I said at the beginning, I don't have as many bad shots as I used to. And I'm catching more lines. So I might have an 8, but it's also going to get me more 12s.
I noticed in Benning, a couple of the ladies, when that rain started coming down, or when they were expecting that rain on Friday, who normally shoot the bigger arrows switched to the skinnies. I can't remember if you were one. Were you shooting?
I didn't. I shot the big arrows. I did have bring the skinnies with me, just in case there was going to be a really bad windy day, but looking at the weather, I was like, I'm feeling comfortable enough with it that I will just continue with the 23s.
So do you go to every tournament with both saying, if I got to, I'll do this, or I'll stick with the 23s?
So that was the first tournament that I shot the 23s. So I did bring them both because I wasn't fully confident yet either in the 23s. But I will keep on bringing the skinnies with me. Like I said, if it's a really windy shoot off, and then I'll pull those out. Typically out in the range, we don't deal with wind too much just because we're in the woods and we're covered.
Yeah. Yeah, it would be the finals like this next one in Metropolis. That one can get pretty windy. That's
right
in the evenings. Do you shoot? What do you shoot indoors? Which arrows?
So I shoot the Super Drive 27s, but I actually am debating trying 23s for indoors too and seeing if that's going to do a little bit better for me.
So Katie, was there anything we didn't talk about that you wanted to talk about today?
Don't think so. I think you pretty much covered all of it.
Well, good. I always like seeing somebody new win in the different divisions there, just because I think that does invite more people. If somebody's just dominant, if you're in open pro, man, what a mountain that must seem like, that I have to go out there and shoot against Levi and Dan.
Yeah. My brother, he switched to open pro this year instead of shooting the known, and he actually was only 1 point away from making his shoot off. But I keep on asking him I ask him anytime he does good like shooting known, like when we do GPO and stuff. I'm like, you sure you keep wanting to do that? But he's like, oh, I'm trying. He's digging away at it. Yeah.
He was on the leaderboard several times through the weekend. I remember his name being up there. And then, like I said, you make it to the shoot down. You're like, all right, I get to shoot against Levi and Dan.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, actually, when he was on the leaderboard, my first thought was, gosh, who's going to hold my umbrella for me? I need him with me, and he's not going to be able to.
That's right. Good call. All right, Katie. Well, we certainly appreciate your time today, and congratulations on the big win. We should mention that was the True Ball Pro-Am in London. That was your first win in women's known pro class. Congratulations on that.
Thank you very much.
All right, folks, that is another episode of the Competition Archery Media Podcast. You can find the podcast on all the platforms where you find your favorite podcasts. Thanks for joining us today.